Raymon Pouwels, 28 years old, so still very young. Started Go Sharing 3 years ago, together with Donny van the Oever and Doeke Boersma. And it all started 10 years ago when I finished my commercial economics. My parents opened up a shop with electric bikes, electric mopeds, some small kick scooters, but that was more for the camper. It wasn't back then as we know it nowadays with the big sharing companies. It was just for private use. And I was always interested in electric mobility. I really think already back then that it is the future. So they got multiple brands in the showroom, and one of them asked us if we wanted to join a commercial training and a workshop training. And I said, I want to join. Why not? Let's see how it works, and maybe it can help a little bit. And I think I still had 2 months of school. I did a training, and they offered me a job if I wanted to start to do the Benelux for EMCO. It's an electric moped brand in Germany. I first said no, because in my mind I wanted to go to Kuala Lumpur for a different job. Wow. Of course, my parents had a different opinion when I was 18 years old. So I started at EMCO. That's where it all started. First of all, I could start doing the finding the dealerships in the Netherlands. So like traditional showrooms, car showrooms, bike stores. Was really interesting to learn. And after 4 years, we had more and more opportunities in sharing. So, for example, first customer was Emmy, then it was Emio, and now it's Go to Global. They made the first order for sharing vehicles. And it was interesting to see back then, when there was almost non-moped sharing, that 3 students had a great idea and they just went for it. At that moment, I was more on the export project, so more and more sharing, less just on the Benelux. And I had the opportunity to learn from all these entrepreneurs. And for example, I worked together with Jago, with Emmy, with Europcar, with Stella, great companies, all doing on a different style sharing solution. And back then we said, why not doing it ourselves? So that was 3.5 years ago, and we were looking how to do it, how should we do it, and we said, okay, if we're going to do this, we need to do it big, so like American style, make sure we get skills. Well, for us, it's really the beginning, but at least we got really the skill in. And at that moment, we looked a lot into kick scooters, but back then they were like picked up every night. The lifetime of the vehicles wasn't long. So we said, okay, we really want to make a sustainable offering of shared mobility, not only by offering electric vehicles, but also making sure that the whole footprint of the offering is truly green. So we said we want to have mopeds, because with the mopeds we can have a lifetime of 5 years, which is totally different than, for example, the kick scooters. And we also do the operations 100% electric. We do it with green energy. So we really try to make every step in the process greener and making sure we really make some impact.
Okay, that's quite interesting, because back then there was a scooter craze. Scooter companies were big, everybody was getting a lot of funding. So it's quite interesting that you looked at the industry, the sharing industry, and instead of doing the scooters like everybody else was doing, you actually looked at the sustainability of the actual business, and you decided to go with mopeds. But I guess, one of the reasons why you started with mopeds is also because of your background and, your experience, I guess. But so when you start a sharing business, you need to have, obviously, the hardware, but also the software. And as we all know, in mobility, if you want to enter this industry fast, because you need to enter fast, right? Yeah. We all start with white label. And then over time, obviously, you develop your own. So how did you start in terms of the software?
Well, not only the software, but I think in you have so many different like software, hardware, financing. IoT. You have so many separate stuff you need to fix. So we said, okay, we can do a couple of things ourselves in making sure we can scale And for others, we need just great partners that are helping us. So for service, we are working closely together with our service provider, Greenmo, who is doing full operational lease. So we don't need to get a lot of money because we don't need to buy all the vehicles. We just do full operational lease, making sure we have a really good SLA. For financing in the early days, a good one for this podcast, but in the early days, we found Rabobank as a Rabo Corporate Investments to be willing to invest in the company, to also help in financing in the beginning. And we had software, indeed, a white label app of Go Urban. It's still a Go, but nothing to do with Go sharing, who is really experienced on building the white label app and scaling together with us. And we really made a decision in the beginning to not do everything ourselves because we wanted to do the scaling fast, making sure we get the scale profitability in, and then to do things in-house when we really know exactly what we want to do. And that's right now what we're doing more and more. So of course now with around 15,000 vehicles on the street, which is maybe not much if you look at the kick scooter numbers, but for example, if you look at the mopeds, we're the biggest operator in the world. So the numbers are getting more interesting. Now we're taking more and more in-house to take over control.
Yeah. I have a question regarding the financing. How were you able to convince Rabobank to go behind a startup? Because, banks traditionally, even though Rabobank, I think they have like an investment arm that finances innovative startups. But I think for a bank, when they look at mobility companies, I guess, they see that there's a lot of competition. So they might be a bit, holding back. But how were you able to convince them? Because I think for other entrepreneurs, financing is something that's significant for your business, right? Otherwise, there's no way to sustain it. So please tell us how you were able to do that together with your team and co-founders.
Yeah, so I think what helped a lot, of course, I had relevant experience, but also both co-founders are experienced for over 25 years, whereof I think both of them have over 10 to 15 years in electric mobility. So we always make the joke that our management team has more experience than the average Tesla management team, which is, of course, totally different. But the team is very experienced. And we really focused on how to make sure we make a difference. So we didn't invest anything in marketing or anything else. It was not focusing on us on a scale. I think this is something that the investors liked a lot. You see a lot of scale-ups or startups getting a lot of money, but also spending way over budget because it's just getting in too easily. And then after all, when the numbers are not there, or maybe COVID came in or anything else, then you directly have an issue. So I think... we always say, what you don't spend, you don't have to earn, which is for us really important.
Yeah.
The other thing that I think is really important is environment friendly, making sure you're really making a difference. There's a lot possible if you really can show that it's environment friendly. And
how can you show that, for example?
Sorry?
So how can you show it that it's environmentally friendly at the beginning before you actually have, real things to show? I guess you only had like a business plan, and of course your co-founders who had the experience,
So we looked at the competitors, what they did in operations, lifetime of the vehicles, and how they made sure to operate. And we made our plan, which was totally different. And the interesting part also, when we started, after 1 week, we could throw away the business plan because it was again totally different. But it was of course interesting to see that we really wanted to make a difference. So not only focusing on short-term decisions, but thinking more on a long-term path. For example, now we have a clear vision that in 2.5 years we want to have 100,000 electric vehicles on the streets. So the decisions we're making is not sometimes the easiest for short term, which I think too many companies are making short-term decisions just to keep investors happy or short-term celebrations. We really take the difficult decisions because we so strongly believe that we need a lot of skill. We need to making sure that in every city there is a go-sharing vehicle ready for you. I think that's something that they appreciate.
Yeah, I mean, it's working out pretty well. So I think they made the right decision, right? And how did you come across your co-founders? Because, as you mentioned, they have a lot of experience, a lot of years in the industry, and you were just starting out. Even though you also had a lot of experience in the industry, right? By working in Germany. How did you meet each other? Because you're a great team. Seeing the results and seeing how big the company is right now, it's a great team. So
Yeah, no, for sure. So Donny and Doeke, they already worked together for, I think, over 10 years. They both had a B2C product, electric mopeds, where Donny had a B2C brand that was really focused on quality of the inside, so controller, engine, battery. And Doeke had his own B2C brand, which was really the best design, wanted to build everything themselves. But in the end, they have seen that together they could do much more. So they wanted to help each other in making sure they could get further. So they started the Greenmo business then in growing fast. And there were not many people with electric mopeds in the market that were active for so many years. So every event, Donny and Doeke were there, and I was there. So every year we talked, and of course I was more and more interested about sharing, and they were just focusing on delivery. And then we said, okay, why not starting it together? So that's how we meet.
Okay, and when you decided to launch the company, what were the steps, the processes? Because, for example, the branding, Go Sharing has a very good brand guidelines, the green scooters. I am from Belgium, and when I'm in Antwerp, I can spot a Go Sharing moped from far away because of the great branding, right?
Yeah.
These are things that differentiate you from others, right? How are you able to, what was the process that went into creating such a brand at the very start already?
Yeah, so for the brand, we really wanted to keep it simple, but we've, at least in our opinion, we said density and reliability are most important for shared mobility. So why is still almost everyone keeping their own car? Because they cannot rely on shared mobility, that there's always one nearby. So how can you make sure that the reliability or the density is more than it in fact is? And then we said the color is one of the most important points, because if you have a bright green vehicle, which the funny part is in Rotterdam, the containers have the same colors, people recognize them and they are like, everywhere there's a vehicle, like everywhere. Yeah. Well, in fact, we have the same amount of numbers as the competitors if there is a permit, but everyone is thinking that there's more Go Sharing. And we try to find more and more small points where we could make a difference. And I think the green color that we now even have on our electric Mini Coopers, that's just amazing. Last week I was on the road with the electric Mini Cooper, and everyone on the highway is just stopping and saying hi, and they love the color.